Hey, it's Salty Vibes with Heather. Let's see, I've been trying to make a list of things to talk about because I have all these ideas and then just poof, they go away. But something that's kind of been speaking to me lately is talking about fear, and like kind of went through the motivation and like how things have changed since I've been divorced. Today is 5 years since I decided to make the decision to separate from my marriage of 20. At that time, we were married 21 years. I'd been with him since I was 17. We pretty much grew up together, raised our babies together, and I put up with a lot of things, a lot of hurts, and we never could get to that destination that I could see. And in my marriage, I had a lot of fear of making decisions because when I would make them, I would either get, almost like a reprimanded or scolded that I made the wrong one, or, he would encourage me to make a decision, but then he didn't like the one that I made, or I'd get silent treatment. It was just like years and years of being treated that way that I was very scared to make decisions on my own. And now, fast forward 5 years later, I've been divorced for 3.5 of those 5 years. We separated for 1.5 years to see if we could work on things. And after therapy and trauma coaching, I made the decision to get divorced. And it was really hard because I wanted to be married. I wanted to live, and have a 50-year wedding anniversary celebration and, have a happy family. But he was just a really hurt man, and I still love him. I mean, I think I always will, but not in that same way. He's the father of my kids. He gave me 3 amazing children. And I try to be really careful. There was a lot of anger and bitterness for quite a while. I definitely have healed from that, and I forgive for all the hurts. But there's still things that I'm realizing I need to work through. And, there's things that happen when you get in a situation, or maybe you get in like another relationship and you start to realize like, oh, I haven't quite worked on that yet. And my hope is during this podcast and life coaching, if anybody decides they want life coaching, to help move the next step in life, or needs trauma life coaching, trauma and grief coaching, I'm also certified in both of those. The trauma grief coaching is through Stronger Co. It is a nonprofit, so everything is paid for through there. The life coaching separate. I'm also a life breakthrough coach. And the reason why when I got offered the opportunity to take that course and get certified in it, was because that was one of the biggest things that helped me, especially the trauma grief coaching was really helpful to like, why am I struggling where I'm at? Why can't I get to the other side? And I use a lot of those tools even this day, like when I need to process through something where I'm struggling or I'm feeling like really down, and I'm like, man, I feel in the pits, like what's going on? And so making decisions is a big one. So I in 2023, so November 2023, I decided to move back to my hometown, and I still had my house, and I lived in Alaska. And I had got the house in the divorce, and I still had it. And so I let my boys stay there and rent from me, and they took care of it. And I moved back down to my hometown where I grew up. I had family and friends down here, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna to live here. I just kind of needed somewhere to go. And that was an option because I had friends down here I had to stay with, I had family that had offered me to stay with them. I shut my car down. I sold a bunch of stuff in the house, and my kids were just going to take care of the house while it was on the market in Alaska. And that was a year process. I traveled. I kind of was seeing someone. I traveled a bunch to Arizona, and I would go to different states and visit friends, and I just would go on long drives. And it was like my healing year, just like I needed to just heal. I had to cut off my ex-husband. I had to stop talking to him for the healing. You know, my daughter was almost 18, so we did only communication through like either text or email. And by the end, it was just email. And then once she turned 18, he wasn't paying for anything else to me. So I let my kids just have contact, and anything that I needed to be told to, they could tell me, so I can get a hold of my boys. They're in their 20s or whatever. If I have an issue, they can contact their dad for me. It just was the best way. It was the only way I knew to heal. And that was a hard decision. But I knew that I couldn't get past that fear of not being good enough, that fear of what if I try to go back? So many things. So I made these huge decisions. I moved down. I didn't tell a lot of people, except for my kids and my parents. And I couldn't make any more memories in that house. It was just really hard. And then I wasn't going to sell it, and I was going to rent it, and my kids didn't want it. It was very emotional process that we went through with that decision. And it took a year for me to sell it. I took it off the market for a while. My kids begged me to keep it. And then finally, the next summer of 2024, all these things started to fall into place. I got offered by a family member's house here in the town where I grew up. And my house got an offer on it. And everything just like lined up like a God thing. It was like my house closed in Alaska. And then I was closing and paying cash for this house that I live in now. And I didn't know if I wanted a house. I didn't even plan to live in this town where I grew up. I was going to live in, somewhere else, maybe Arizona, and get a condo. Like, I didn't really know. And it was a big deal when my daughter wanted to come down and live with me. And I knew I needed a place for us to kind of have a home again for a while. And I knew it probably wasn't my forever home. And I bought a cute little ranch, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 12, almost 1,300 square foot home. And it's perfect. It's perfect for her. And I restarted. And it was a hard decision. And there's still decisions that I'm making that sometimes it's just like, man, this is really hard because I don't always trust myself. And I remember telling my therapist, like, how do I know when I'm making a right decision? Like, I don't know if, I made a bad one in my marriage. I stayed too long. There's all the things that I'd like beat myself up for. And she was like, you'll know. You just know. She goes, you're way smarter than you realize, and you feel it. And I do. I have a really good intuition, but sometimes I don't trust myself because the years of not feeling good enough, the years of not feeling like the decisions that I made were respected, or, my husband doesn't approve, this is the wrong one. Or I would make a decision and it would feel like I was being punished because it wasn't the right decision. So it's really weird. And I just kind of was thinking today, it's been 5 years, December 10th, 2020. Today we're at December 10th, 2025. And it's a weird position for me to be in sometimes when I kind of look back on it. I try not to go to the past because the past is over. And I don't try to do a really good job to move forward. But the past is what created me to be where I am. And so I do have to look back at that sometimes, and I can be negative about it. I'm trying to twist it into a more positive, like I've shaped who I am. I'm here in this doing, a career, a different career. I'm in a different home. I'm in a different state. I'm meeting new people. I can make all these decisions on my own, and it is crazy and weird and scary. And I don't even know sometimes, like, what am I doing? Like, how am I going to get to the next decision? And one of the biggest ones is, will I ever be in a serious relationship or get married again? I get asked that question a lot now. It's been 5 years, and it's, for some reason, people like to want you to be with someone. And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. For the longest time, I didn't ever want to be married again. for the fact of I like making my own decisions. I like making my own money. I don't have to tell someone where I'm going and what I'm doing. I can get asked to go on a trip. I can say yes. I don't have to get permission. I lived in a house where, considering my husband was the leader, well, he had a lot of say. And it wasn't like tyrannical, but in some ways it could be looked at that way. I try to be very peaceful and calm and not ruffle feathers, where it probably could have been a lot worse if maybe I made decisions. But I'm just a calm, easygoing, flexible person anyways, for the most part. So I think that is probably why there wasn't as many blow-ups or situations. And I would find ways like, oh, well, you can't afford to go on that trip, so I would sell, if I had something nice. I like to do adventures and fun things over lots of expensive material things. And so I would find a way. I would sell stuff on eBay. I would, go clean people's houses. I would, whatever. I would try to make the money. And then I'm like, well, I just made the money, so you can't tell me no. And I started to get better at that as the years went on, as the kids got older, because my friends would be like, well, he just bought a really expensive gun. He just bought these military vehicles. He just bought, and I'm like, I'd look at him, I'm like, well, I know, but, he's the main breadwinner. I worked too, and I helped run our businesses, but you kind of live in a household like that. I'm trying to be careful with what I say, because I don't want to talk badly, but I do want to talk about things in this podcast about that. So I'm trying to word it correctly. But there was things that I didn't get because I was considered less than, in my eyes. That's the way I felt. I don't think he felt that way, but I always felt less than. I felt that I wasn't allowed because I, for the majority of our marriage, raised the kids. I homeschooled the kids at the middle school and high school years. I took them to all their sports. And then I would work part-time. And I helped run our business. But sometimes I worked more. And so, decisions for me to make were considered, oh, you need to stay home and clean the house and have dinner on the table. And so it is very weird and very hard for me now to be in this position. And I love it. I love the feeling that I have. And it's sometimes I just sit there and I get home and I'm like, I don't have to answer to anybody. And it's amazing. And so I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to make that decision. Unless, I get told it's the right person. Maybe, I don't know. I think it holds me back from getting close to people, close to having a man in my life again, because I'm scared. There's a lot of fear, to be 100% honest. And also, I love the freedom that I have. And so how do you find that when you were living in a very unhappy, unhealthy marriage? How do you find your teammate, your partner, the one that you have fun with and adventure with in this second half of my life? And that's a big decision I need to make. And I don't know if I ever will. So, yeah, anybody else been through something like that? Or, you have decisions that are hard to make? I hope to go and elaborate more on this on the next time I do another podcast. My goal is to have one a week. Once I get more content, I will plan on doing 2 a week. But if you are interested in trauma and grief coaching, there is Stronger Co. is the company. They're based out of Montana. She founded the company and has life coaches all over the United States. I'm based out of Washington, so if you need to have one in Washington, I do Zoom, and it's all paid for through the grants. Like I said, it's nonprofit. If you're interested in hiring a life breakthrough coach, you need to, let's say you have been through a divorce and you want to figure out what your career is. You want to start a business. There's more to life than just raising our kids. And then all of a sudden your kids are grown up and you're like, what am I doing with my life? I would love to help you with that. So my Instagram is Heather White Coaching. I have a website. I also have a Calendly on there, so you can book a 30-minute free consultation with me. Or you can also email me at saltykisses26@gmail.com and just let me know a little bit about you, and we can set up a Zoom or a phone call, whatever. Or if you live in my hometown, we can meet up for coffee. I love to chat. I love coffee talk, and I love to help. I have always wanted to do coffee talk with Heather. When I was younger, I would make up shows with my friend and we would dress up and do interviews. And so this is kind of what I feel like life coaching is. And a lot of times it's just sitting there and I'm helping you process through with the questions, and it's just getting our brain to like click and like, oh, I had that in there all along. But sometimes it gets all muddled and fogged up. And I still get that way, even though I've been through a lot of it. The tools, once you get them, are really nice to have, and you can use them over in so many different scenarios of your life. So I would love to help you. I will post my email and stuff in the description because I keep forgetting to put that in there. But check out my Instagram page, and I do look forward to speaking to anybody who would love to have a life coaching session. I will be back next week. Have a great week.